Marvel, DC, Power Rangers? Okay, that last one isn't as big as other superheroes, but I still think it's a recognizable name, at least in America. And also if you only count Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2 in space. Yes, Power Rangers is still a thing, and it's really good. For the most part. So we all know the powerhouses that are Marvel and DC. Mainly Marvel, but we all know the names like Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman. Except, those are all American creations, while superheroes are all around the world. Of course, Power Rangers gets its footage from Japanese Super Sentai. And before that, Kamen Rider dominated Japanese airwaves in 1971 and is still going strong. And Ultraman before it is a pop culture icon, even today. While American heroes are all popular around the world, Japan still embraces their own heroes too, as each of these franchises I mentioned pass their 50-year anniversaries with hit after hit, depending on who you ask, but hey, they're still making billions of dollars. You might know Toei for their animation studios and IPs, but they also handle Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, so yeah, they're making a bit more than $1. These billion-dollar names have legacies, they're moneymakers, and are even celebrated in America. But they're not Japan's biggest superhero franchise. To you and me, this will immediately come off as a... wait, what? But yes, this man made of beans makes more money than Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman, DC, and even the MCU. That's actually how this video came out. I was scrolling through Twitter and got a notification from my friend Mako who said, Anpan Man beat Marvel and DC to be the highest grossing superhero franchise. You can't make this up. That was a reply to her other tweet showing that Anpan Man beat out the MCU by $4 billion. On paper, that is an enormous amount. But keep in mind this is their gross since they began, and the MCU made that much in 15 years. Compared to Anpan Man, which took 50 years. Still, it is funny to see this treat at the top, but now the question is, who exactly is this? Anpan is a sweet roll normally filled with red bean paste. Maybe you know another Japanese treat called taiyaki. It's shaped like a fish and also has red bean paste. I personally think they're both delicious once you get past the slight bean flavor, though I prefer taiyaki since the shell is a bit more similar to a waffle cone. Much like everything else in Japan, Anpan got a mascot in the form of Anpanman. That's just the single sentence version, and kind of a lie. The real story is the rest of this video. The story goes that a man named Takashi Yanase would often think of Anpans during World War II, so I thought of this character and started writing him into his books around 1968. Funnily enough, the collection that Anpanman appeared in, 12 Pearls, was meant for a young adult audience, with Anpanman himself being a satire of the superhero genre. Then, Yanase made this character the main focus, being featured in several children's story anthologies before finally becoming serialized in 1973. You could say the idea came from combining one thing with another popular thing since Kamen Rider V3 was airing at the time. But also keep in mind that works such as Astro Boy and Tetsujin 28 have been around since the 1960s. I'm actually a bit surprised Anpanman wasn't made until a decade later in 1973. Before this, Takashi Yanase was a well-known figurehead in the world of manga, to the point that his work inspired the likes of Osamu Tezuka. This led to him hiring Yanase for several works at Mushi Production. He also co-hosted Manga School, an educational TV show that taught children how to draw manga books. When Anpanman first started being published, this character became Yanase's flagship title. In this early stage, Anpanman perhaps had too much going on in its subtext, and stories would feature him mostly saving impoverished families, which was criticized for being a concept that preschoolers wouldn't understand. Constant reworking eventually made the Anpanman we know today, becoming the book series Sore Ike Anpanman. Although these books enjoyed relative success, it wouldn't be until 1988, when its anime first aired, that the floodgates opened. This little cartoon, which has been airing weekly since October 3rd, 1988, sparked a whole new craze in Japan's pop culture. Merchandise from toys, video games, to towels, to, well, Anpan, has maintained a consistent flow of revenue since then. Across the water, the superheroes we know now had a bit of a struggle during this time. The Superman film franchise had petered off into critical and eventually financial failures, while Batman in 1989 certainly kickstarted the modern-day blockbuster movie, also faced similar problems with its franchise. DC even had more issues when trying to adapt their other superheroes. Remember Steel? That's a Maritoku, right?
I know what you can do to help. What? Anything. Don't tell Grandma.
Marvel also had plenty of issues trying to get their foot in the door of merchandising. While they certainly dominated the Saturday morning cartoon front, trying to get toys out of them became its own problem, and the effects of Toy Biz pretty much continue to this day. Not only that, but James Cameron dropping out of the Spider-Man movie, the whole comic book bubble, that weird Roger Corman Fantastic Four film, all were factors that led to Marvel's bankruptcy, then X-Men, and Spider-Man, back to back. A new era of superhero blockbusters rose from this, and it led to the MCU starting in 2008, with yearly movies that turned into a monstrous 3 movies a year schedule. Possibly more if you consider Sony's Spider-Man films. And even Morbius. It's Morbin time. Okay, there's your obligatory reference out of the way. And even then, you can't stop Anpan Man, especially when it prospered when both Marvel and DC were waning. As of this recording, it seems like superhero movies are dwindling down in revenue. Ant-Man Quantumania didn't break even in the box office. The Flash is pretty much a box office flop. And although Guardians Volume 3 is the second highest grossing movie so far this year, it doesn't come close to Super Mario. Which, hey, I would kind of count as a superhero movie as a stretch, but hey, it's there.
Too late, humans!
So, it might be too early to call, but Anpan Man might just win this fight. When you start to notice this little guy all around Japan, you start to realize how important he is. Anpan Man is a Japanese institution that will never stop itself from being an important part in their culture. Sure, you have Ultraman, Dragon Ball, or One Piece, which are all big spectacles that are easily identifiable to an international audience. But that's a kind of cultural export that people can relate back to the media they already watch. They're different, yet somewhat familiar, but Anpan Man, for all his childlike wonder and lightheartedness, is exclusively for Japan. I don't see this little guy finding an international audience, but he doesn't need one. He's loved by all without having to be a big, brooding, and muscular hero. And honestly, I can't ask for a better candidate. He's cute, he fights for poor people, and he's making me hungry for some Anpan. And maybe I'll get an Anpan keychain too. Oh no, I'm starting to give Anpan Man my money!
Video has reached completion. See you next time.